Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Jan Werle and in this particular video I would like to cast a glance together with you at a very interesting game recently played by Magnus Carlsen against Fedoseev. It was a game played during the World Cup. It was the 8th match played by Magnus Carlsen. He had lost against Duda, who won finally the World Cup and qualified. But so this was the battle for the bronze medal, and it caught my eye because it was in the advanced variation of the Caro-Kann, and white played on the fourth move c2, c4. And this is not the most popular line. In the course recently published by Aron, Dutch Grandmaster, it was a very extensive course about the Caro-Kann. And he said that it's maybe not the most dangerous line, c2, c4, in the advanced variation. He said that this is probably more promising and dangerous for black. Nevertheless, in this sideline, this was played by Carlsen, so it should be taken seriously, and that was also the reason that I started analyzing it. Black played here e6 to develop the bishop and also to solidify the center, the point d5. White went on with knight c3, and it all looks pretty harmless. Black has several lines, but it goes beyond the scope of this particular ChessBase magazine video to also have a look at knight e7 and all kind of other sidelines. So we confine ourselves with bishop b4. So black, logical move. He has not so much space, especially not after c4. And he has 4 minor pieces. And he moves his bishop out, and then afterwards he can bring his knight to e7. And of course he wouldn't mind to exchange one pair of minor pieces because of his lack of space. Several interesting lines here possible for white. Mostly played is queen b3, and following the line of Aron in his lifetime repertoire of the Caro-Kann. So knight e7, and then he's always trying to find an active response. And also here in this sideline, and here he comes with queen b6, and often he comes up with the c5 break in order to bring the knight of b6 from ba to c6 in order to hit the center on d4 and on e5. And I think that he is right, that black has sufficient counterplay, and that he can be happy with the outcome of the opening. Another line here of the bishop b4 of white is a3, probably more popular than the move played by Magnus Carlsen. Then he suggests take, knight e7, knight f3, and again c5 to move the knight to c6. And black has, good development. The bishop is out of the chain, the pawn chain, actively placed on f5. Short castling is coming, and he has pressure on the center. Black is fine. Another line could be knight f3 instead of queen b3 or a3 on 6th move. And then he follows up with bishop e2, short castling, dc4, and again c5. And he's right, black is just fine. So in that sense, it's a bit innocent looking. I fully agree with Aron. But having said this, Carlsen comes up with c takes d5. And for black, there's an important decision to make. What move should he do? Well, Fedoseev chose for the logical queen takes d5. But then he could suffer from a lack of space. You could also, of course, play c takes d5. That's Lami's suggestion. And we don't know what Magnus Carlsen had in mind here. That's a shame. I would like to come up with some fresh ideas. For example, I'm following one game of Parafian against Abdusatorov. It's an internet game, but played on chess.com, 2020. Nevertheless, some interesting ideas here have been played, and we should take it seriously. White played h4, and yes, he's grabbing space, and he's using the fact that the bishop could get in trouble on f5. And for example, if black plays here h5, this is an inaccuracy due to a3. And I think that white already is slightly better after bishop e2 and knight h3, knight f4. But as I said already, these are all some ideas. Also, I checked this with the engine, and we need more practice to come with the final verdict. So h6 is probably a bit more solid for black than g4, harassing the bishop. Bishop h7, h5 could be played here. Knight c6, bishop d3, take, and another line which could be played, not following Lamy's recommendation, is queen bishop takes d3, knight ge2, knight ge7, f4, and yeah, this was the game between Parafian against Abdusatorov. Black made a small inaccuracy, played king d7, looks logical. He can move his king to the center because the center is closed. The king is not immediately in danger, but nevertheless, after bishop d2, queen a6, he found himself in a situation. After queen takes a6, b takes a6, the very strong knight a4 secured the square of c5 for the knight, and white already got a very serious advantage. So what should have been played by black? Probably a much better idea, instead of king d7, but hard to find for black, was f5, ef6, gf6, bishop d2, and the position is very double-edged. So, but it was worthwhile playing. So in the lines recommended by Aron Lamy, as we said, so g4, he recommends bishop takes c3, bc3, bishop d3, queen d3. And here he says knight g is 7. He stops the line and he's saying that black reached the position with counterplay, and that he can follow up with queen d7, f6, maybe long castling, and so on. Maybe also knight a5, knight c4. And that's all true. Definitely black has compensation, but maybe things are not that easy as he tells us. So let's have a glance here. What could be a way to follow up? That is knight f3. And yeah, I will just give you some lines here. So short castling, first of all, is probably a bit risky due to rook g1. And white hasn't castled, but his king is not in danger. There is definite compensation for black, of course. He has a positional and structural advantage because the square on c4 is weak, and this is semi-open file. He can put his rook on c8, attack the pawn on c3, and he has a better position here. After king h8, white comes up with h4, and he's even close to winning. Knight a5, there's g5. Why did we play knight h4? That is to stop the knight from coming to f5. And the attack here is just simply crushing for black. And white is winning because after h6, the black squares will be opened. f6 is a weak square, and there's no defense possible. So something else than king h8, f6 can be played. It won't make a lot of difference. After rook f6, there's g5. And for better or for worse, for black, the position will be opened. And this is again is leading to a very interesting attack. And for us, not for black, of course, because his king is so much in danger, and it's likely that white is winning this game. So what are the alternatives after knight f3? Black can play queen d7 and postpone short castling, keep the option open of castling long. But then again, white comes with bishop a3 and gets a serious attack again against black's king. Knight d2 is interesting, stopping for the moment the invasion on the c4 square, rook c2. And now I would like to come with an interesting idea. Here I would like to come with rook h3. And yeah, what is the idea? It's combining defense and attack because the rook is defending c3. And yes, positionally it's not a beautiful pawn on c3, it's a backward pawn, but we have also a lot in our favor here. What is in our favor? So we have more space on the king side, but I don't see a good place for the king. And moreover, the bishop is not that bad as it seems, because it exerts a lot of pressure on the long diagonal. And the king is in danger. So, yeah, what can black play? You should already be very cautious here. After f6 we can take, and we play rook e3. We hit the pawn on e6, and this is an extremely dangerous position for black. Likely that his position is going to fall soon. Another move is knight c4 instead of f6. Okay, for the moment he's keeping the position closed. But also, yeah, here we take, rook takes c4, and we play rook f3. And the thing is for black that this is a backward pawn. He can't bring his king to the king side. He can't escape because this is a backward pawn. So after short castling, there is, for example, queen d2. And yes, we're pointing our queen at the king side. And then after rook fc8, there's king f1 and subsequently king g2. The king is safe. Black doesn't have a lot of counterplay. And at the right time, we can try to, well, it's hanging in the air. It's dangerous. It's looming. And that is g4, g5. It's hard for black to come up with any defense. Okay, going back, we looked at many ideas. After queen d7, we saw that bishop a3 is interesting. And here, yeah, I said rook h3. I think that this is the best idea. After short castling, there's queen a4, take on e7, f4, and king d8. And that is the reason why I don't want to castle. And after, instead of rook h3, f4, there's queen a4, bishop d6, and queen takes a4. And again, we see that the pawn on c3 is weak. And yeah, it's hard for white after queen c4 to get an advantage. Because, yeah, black has counterplay, and the queens have been swapped. And that's the reason why rook h3 is so strong. It stops the counterplay, and also we bring the rook to the strong square of f3, hitting f7. And yeah, I think this is a nice novelty, and it would surprise your opponent, who is following Lamy's repertoire. Okay, then let's go back to the game of Magnus Carlsen. So we play c takes d5. Fedoseev, I don't know if he was out of book. It could be. I mean, this is such a small line. He played queen d5. Having played some games before, but it is also likely that the general Caro-Kann players here on unknown territory. And Magnus went on with knight ge2. So what is it about? It is again looking very harmless, but it is not harmless at all. Because in a couple of moves, white will grab a lot of space on the king side. Sorry, the king. This is an illegal move. But I meant, of course, knight g3, hit the bishop. The bishop has to retreat, and then we move the pawn to h4 and subsequently to h5. And the bishop doesn't have a lot of squares to go to, but anyway, white grabs a lot of space. And we see that black is suffering from lack of space. He finds it hard to pick the good pieces, the good places for his pieces. Yeah, Fedoseev went back to d8 here. He could also play knight e7, but then after a3, bishop takes c3. Of course not bishop f5, because he's losing a piece, because the queen can be taken and the bishop is under attack. So he should take on c3, queen a5, bishop e2, and here g4 again. This aggressive approach is seen more often. And now h4, h6, and h5 is coming. Bishop h7, g5, and h6. and this is making the black's squares around the king and the king itself very vulnerable. So this is just an idea, but you see how dangerous it can become for black. Black played queen d8, and here a3 was played. Bishop a5, and here knight g3. Bishop knight e7 and bishop c4. Interesting move. The bishop is not that badly placed here. It's exerting some pressure on the center. Sometimes it is useful to control the d5 square, as we will see soon. So bishop g6, h4, h6, h5. We reach this position, and white played here queen g4. One of the key ideas in the position, hitting the g7 pawn, and how should black defend? It's not so easy. And yeah, during the live game, checking the game with the engine, there was a lot of kibitzing about it during the game. And of course, yeah, your engine shouts here bishop f5, but it's not easy to be seen. And if a good player like Fedoseev is missing, it's also possible that your unprepared opponent would miss it. What is the key idea here? It is never bad to exchange pieces, and after take, of course, the pawn is defended. And after queen takes g7, rook h7, the queen is in danger. And after queen f6, then I'm starting to doubt if this is really the key idea for black. No, rook h7. Yeah, that is queen takes d4. And in this idea, in this position, black attacks the bishop, comes with counterplay, also hits the knight. The bishop has to be moved, and we take on c3. So instead of queen g7, white should take on f5, then knight takes f5 and bishop e3. Knight d7, short castling, and queen e7. And black intends to castle long, bishop d3 to hit the knight on f5. And then we force black to take on e3, and nevertheless, after the strong move bishop c4, keeping an eye on the central square, it's always useful to have this control over the d5 square, but I think that white is simply better, because the king is a bit vulnerable on c8, the f-file has to be opened, and black doesn't have to break any longer with f5 here, because of after e takes f6, then e6 is hanging. That's also a reason that the bishop is well placed, and this could lead to an advantage. Maybe Magnus would have played this, but we don't know. Nevertheless, king f8 was the game, and the position looks maybe pleasant for black because of the bishop on the long diagonal. This bishop, aesthetically, it's all pleasing for black, but in the long run, black is suffering from lack of space, and his knights, he controls the d5 square, but only one knight can be placed on d5, and the other is a bit more, he's just watching. White plays short castling, knight d7, knight ce4, bishop c7, bishop a2, and knight f5, all logical moves, and white took on f5. And in case of e takes f5, Magnus would have gone queen f3. And the idea is that black cannot take on e4 because it's a mate, and that makes, of course, it's rather a dull move. E takes f5 because it's blocking the bishop. So for that reason, Fedoseev took with the bishop and queen f3. And black is in huge trouble here because of his poor king on f8. There are many interesting ideas here, like knight g3. And then the black bishop has to move. He has to go back to h7. And then afterwards e6 will fall. So white can follow up with bishop takes e6. Black played queen e7, and here knight g3, no, not queen g3, but knight g3, bishop h7, and the queen is now protecting the pawn, so white can't win a pawn with bishop takes e6. But yeah, there are many interesting ways to follow up here. Yeah, one of them would have been b4, knight b6, and b5. And yeah, the idea here is to open up the position. After c takes b5, there's the beautiful move bishop d2. And you excuse me for my words. After bishop d2, white wants to bring all his pieces in play, and the queen and king are misplaced. The rook is misplaced on h8. There's no way that he can free himself here. Yeah, because the king can't be moved to e7 or another square on 7th rank. And yeah, by opening the position and the files, so for example, first of all the diagonal, but also the c file, yeah, the black's king gets in trouble, and also the misplaced rook on h8. So king g8, rook ac1. White is not in a hurry, but he can slowly improve the pieces, and black is defenseless. Again, a good move, opening the position, e takes d5, and with the sole purpose of just opening the d file, rook d1, and next to come is bishop takes d5, and everything is winning here. And it's this line is a striking example of White's success here in this line. White is playing actively. He's trying to be dominating on both wings, on the king side and also on the queen side. And yeah, when I saw these lines, then I came to the conclusion that this is not at all a harmless sideline c4. And of course, yeah, you also probably came to the conclusion because Magnus Carlsen played this line in such an important moment during the World Cup. Okay, having said all of this, we're going back. After bishop h7, Magnus played queen g4, and black played c5. And yeah, one deficiency for black in this Caro-Kann opening and advanced variation is, yeah, he has very nice pieces, but he needs to do something about his lack of space. White is slowly improving his pieces. Yeah, black has to do something back, otherwise white is slowly improving his position. And here it comes too late, c5. And I think this is also the reason that Lamy is all the time in the early phase of the Caro-Kann trying to push this pawn break with c5, hitting the center, attacking the center of white, trying to play in an active manner. So white played bishop d2, again a beautiful move, and yeah, it illustrates white's dominant position. So he's using the pin along the diagonal. Here he can play bishop b4, and black is losing. After bishop d2, black played rook d8, and here f4, a beautiful move. Why is it beautiful? Of course, yeah, he wants to open the f-file and the king is in danger. But also you increase you fortify the central point on e5. After cd4, once again, there's bishop b4. So black played knight b6. Probably he got already a bit desperate. And after bishop c3, there was knight d5 and f5. And you see that he doesn't even mind about his exchange on f1. About his rook, I mean, on f1 he's an exchange down after knight takes f1. Was not played in the game. And black cannot do anything against the opening of the f-file of the king g8, fe6, fe6, queen g4. Yeah, you can say that black's an exchange up, but I think that he's an exchange down because this rook is not taking part in the game and the play. And yeah, the king on g8 is living in deplorable conditions. So there's no way that he can defend himself against bishop takes e6. So queen f3 was played, black took on f5, and after knight f5, bishop f5. Very nice move, d5. So white threatens d6. White shouldn't worry about e takes d5 because then white can win a piece. Yeah, one more thing I wanted to show you, that g4 maybe looks logical, but it's a bad move because of queen g5 and then queen g4. So white played d5, then bishop b6 and bishop c4. Beautiful move again, because the diagonal will not be opened, and it makes the bishop on b6 look rather silly. Here black played king g8. He could have played e takes d5, but then queen takes f5, d takes c4, and e6. And again, this bishop is doing nothing. The king is in the middle of the board. All pieces of white are active, only not the rook, but it takes one move. And yeah, of course we don't mind at all being a pawn or two down. White is just winning easily here. So bishop c4, there's king g8, d6. This is a protected pass pawn. Positionally, white is also winning, despite the fact that he is here a pawn down. And queen h4, b3, supporting the bishop. So actually, yeah, despite the fact that Magnus Carlsen is playing in such an aggressive way, he's also playing positionally. He's attacking strategically. So he doesn't mind playing a small move. He just wants to hold all the cards. And yeah, he's not in a hurry. So it's more important that black's pieces are not getting active. The bishop is passive, the rook is passive, and he slowly, gradually he's improving his position. The rook d7, queen e2, queen g4 was played, and here a fantastic move. A really beautiful sacrifice. Maybe you can join me and help me. Well, a lot of kudos to the guys who, and also to the girls who saw rook takes f5. Should be given 2 exclamation mark. What is the point behind this beautiful move? After queen takes e2, bishop takes e2, we hit the rook and we go back to c4. And black has no defense, because if the king wants to move in order to bring the rook in play, yeah, then the pawn on f7 falls and white has 2 connected pass pawns, easily winning. After rook d7, white doesn't mind at all. He just moves on with improving his position, g4 and rook f1. Black is just completely lost here. He cannot move his king because to h7 because the pawn is falling. White has the 2 connected pass pawns, and in case of a6, white moves the pawn, and then e7, and here rook takes f7. This is a sample line, easily winning because of rook takes g7 check. Well, in the game, Fedoseev took on f5 and rook f1, queen g5, bishop d2, queen d8, queen g4, a6, and another important moment of the game. Can you finalize the game, conclude the game, I mean, with an outstanding move? So Magnus played here rook takes f7, and after rook takes f7, which was not played, there was queen takes e6. And yeah, black cannot defend against all the threats here. I mean, is there a defense? I find it hard for black. What the computer comes up with queen f8. I switch on the engine, but there are more ways here to win. But one of them is d7, hitting the bishop. After bishop d8, there's queen e8. And after queen h7, there's here bishop takes f7, and black is totally lost. After rook takes f7, king f7, queen e6 check, king f8. There's queen f5. And despite being 2 rooks down for only a bishop, yeah, it doesn't matter because he's like trapped in a mating net here. He was repeating the moves, but not for reason to make a draw, but of course just a bit teasing his opponent, playing e6. After rook takes d6, there's queen f7 mate. So instead black played queen f6, and Magnus took on d7, queen g6, hg6. Yeah, and we feel probably sorry for the black player. It's horrible to play such a position. The king cannot move, and the rook is so much trapped on h8. And yeah, it was just a matter of just doing some moves. Of course, he had no hopes left, especially not against Magnus. Bishop g4, and not giving the opportunity to black to bring in his rook in play. So with the rook shift to h5 and then subsequently to e5. After b5, king f3, just bringing in the king to e4, d5 and so on. And it was time to resign for black after c takes b4. So beautiful illustration, this game, for how we should play in the advanced variation against bishop f5. So c4 is a serious sideline. I expect that we can see a lot more games being played in this small sideline c4, and it will gain a lot of popularity. That was it for now. Hope to see you soon again in the next Chess Based Magazine video. Goodbye.